This is the second part of the lecture, and it is all about Aboriginal Australians. In 1999, I got very interested in them, and I traveled to Australia and lived for a while with an Aboriginal community in Central Australia. And I'll tell you in this part what I learned about them, about their civilization before the coming of the British, and I experienced how they live today. And the first clip is from a documentary in which a grandfather tells his grandchildren about their way of life. After that, I'll tell you about their civilization and what happened to them.
I am old Yaka Garimala, an Australian Aborigine, as foreigners call us, and I'm going to tell you what our world is like. My country is enormous. It is an island that could be a continent. It is the most beautiful country in the world. We have deserts, jungles, savanna, plateaus and mountains with deep canyons carved by furious torrents. The sea is all around. Along our coast there are bays and inlets and sacred cliffs like this one of Beakerton Island. This is where I live. We elders have the important task of initiating the young into our customs, explaining our history to them, and teaching them to respect the traditional laws. Our people, our culture, are the oldest in the world. We were already here thousands of years ago. We were around at the same time as what the white men called Homo sapiens. In these caves and caverns, we can feel the influence of the spirits of our ancestors. If you sleep here, you can see them in your dreams and receive their messages. They come and fill you with their strength, and when you wake, you feel very good. These are sacred places for us. In the past, people lived in caves and natural shelters like these.
This is a fragment from the documentary The Man of the Fifth World by Planet Doc Full Documentaries. And I'll tell you more what the grandfather tells to his grandchildren. The documentary is about 1 hour, so I took just a little bit out of it. For Australian Aboriginals, songs are very important, and I'll tell you more about what they call songlines. And so this is what excerpts from what grandfather recounts. Quote, "Each song is a living map which describes a specific path, the course of a river, a mountain or forest. If you brought together all of these songs, which are passed down from generation to generation and which come from dreams, we would compose the map of Australia." In the Kakadu National Park lies Ubi Rock, where the rainbow serpent stopped after creating the world and was painted on a rock so that people could see her. Over time, our forefathers left on the rocks a complete collection of images which depict their way of life and their beliefs. We share our land with all types of animals, some of them dangerous. The kangaroo is the most characteristic animal of my country. When we get together to dance around the fire, we sing the dreams of the animals, the stories of how they were created. Those that dance and sing paint their faces and bodies with kaolin to look like the spirits, which according to our beliefs are of grey color. The dance of the women is slower and more measured. They are normally in a state of trance, possessed by the spirits of the forest, which protect them. The didgeridoo is our sacred instrument. The men who know how to play it are very important in our culture. With a didgeridoo, they communicate our wishes to the spirits, and they call them to our aid. The sacred instrument brings us closer to the world of our ancestors. Our people were nomads, always moving from one place to another. In the forest, we know how to get everything we need. The women have always worked in the forest, and no one knows nature like they do. Their work is dangerous. They often come across a king brown, one of the most poisonous snakes in the world. Its bite is always fatal. My people have always felt the need to express themselves through painting, now and since the beginning of time. Our art, now called Aboriginal art by the white man's tourist industry, is born from the dreams of each artist and the intense colors we see in our land. End quote. Aboriginal Australians have thrived for 65,000 years as a highly evolved civilization. In our modern scientific language, they were astronomers, biologists, dietitians, climatologists, healers, and highly sophisticated artists. Their world was entirely sacred. In their worldview, all physical phenomena were the manifestation of the imagination of their ancestors, a rich hierarchy of beings from primordial time, whose descendants they themselves were. These beings were called dreamings because they imagined, they dreamt everything which exists. In a timeless time, the Australian Aboriginals call dream time. Thus their ancestors, the dreamings, were non-physical, they were pure spirit. Each dreaming had certain unique qualities. The forms they created express these qualities. The spirit of a bee has different qualities than the spirit of a solitary wombat. Hence, the bee and the wombat look and are different and have different lifestyles. All the ancestors' creations have an outer appearance, an outer form, and an inner hidden essence. The outer physical world owns its existence to the imagination of the dreamings, who continue to be the non-material spirit essence in everything they create. These outer physical forms, the rocks, plants, animals, humans, are clues about the inner essence, which the outer form envelopes and hides. As everything is an expression of a spirit essence, obviously everything is alive. Rocks, rivers, sand, caves, all alive. In their consciousness, everything was alive, created and permeated and given life by spirit essence and ultimately by spirit. Spirit is consciousness. Spirit created and creates incessantly by imagining, by dreaming. Australian Aboriginals lived in a subtle and sacred state of consciousness, close to oneness. They themselves, the Aboriginals, had a known name by which they were called the public name, and a secret name, never allowed to be spoken, referring to her ancestor, whose imagination the tribe was, and whose seed took the form of this particular man or woman, which means that every man and every woman grew from the seed of an ancestor, from an ancestor spirit, and was a descendant of an ancestor spirit. The same applies to their sacred stories. There is a literal meaning, which can be very poetic but still concerning the concrete. It refers often to animals, to rocks, to concrete things, to the physical world, and a hidden meaning. As already stated, in their consciousness, everything was connected and communicated with everything. The stars told them it is time to collect emu eggs, and told them to leave the eggs still to be found for the emus to hatch, to ensure the next generation of emus. And I'll show you a short video related to this.
I'd just like to talk about some traditional knowledge that was handed down to most of us Indigenous fellows in this area, and it's the emu in the sky. Around April, May every year, the emu will appear in the Milky Way. Just underneath the Southern Cross, you'll see a dark spot, a rounded dark spot. That's the head of the emu. In front of him, of course, is his beak. And as we follow it down, you can see his neck in the dark spots of the Milky Way. Comes right down to his body. You can see his legs, and you can see a couple of eggs underneath. At that certain time of year, it's the time for us to go out and collect emu eggs. We go out, of course, into the bush, always leaving some eggs for next year and for the generations to keep going. They only last up until early June. Anytime after early June they start getting chicks in them, but before that, from April, May, you're pretty right to go gather.
Australian Aboriginals knew which areas were rich in uranium and avoided them, calling them, quote, sickness country, end quote. Uranium can indeed contaminate water and land, leading to kidney failure for people and animals. This knowledge was centuries before Western science understood radioactivity. For 65,000 years, they prevented incest and inbreeding. They spoke around 300 languages and many more dialects, all different from each other. Yet they could understand each other by listening to the melody and the rhythm when speaking. They did not build houses. They were nomads. They did not write. They did not possess written scriptures. They memorized. Theirs was an oral tradition, and they communicated a lot through songs and dances. And I'll show you a video.
Wadamuli, my name is Elwyn Henaway. I'm from the Birigubba people. I'm here today to tell you a little bit about this one. Her name to me is the Yigi Yigi. The Yigi Yigi is used in ceremonial reasons. They connect the people with the spirit world. All Aboriginal stories are handed down through songs and dances from generation to generation, or song lines. So when you had to go somewhere, you would have a song and you would sing that song, and the map would be in the song. Aboriginal learning is observation and mimic. They look and they learn. So when we see a kangaroo, he's bouncing. For the snake, it might do whining sounds. For a kookaburras, you might do kookaburra sounds. So to form a story, a quick example, put them all together. Thank you.
I reiterate, they did not possess material goods. What they owned were dream tracks, better known as song lines. And I'll show you a short video.
He was traveling, they kept going. When the sound of the boomerang was coming, from all different angles. Dalamanda la brandana, dalamanda la brandana, dalamanda. La brandana, dalamanda la brandana, dalamanda la brandana, dalamanda la brandana.
What were songlines? Songlines were connected to trails which the Aboriginal clans walked. Once more, Australian Aboriginals were nomads. Each clan owned a trail, and all knowledge related to the trail. The trail and the knowledge were the songline. The route of a songline was mirrored in the sky, connecting stars and planets significant to the clan's cosmology with real geographical features such as rivers, trees, and mountains mentioned in the ceremonial songs. The songline's knowledge was encapsulated in the sacred story about the dreamtime and the ancestors, in stories about the vegetations, animals, birds and reptilians with whom the clan shared the trail and its surroundings. about the rocks on which the dreamings left their footprints when creating this piece of land, and the drawings their human ancestors left about their way of life. About the meanderings of a river, waterholes in the desert, powerful ceremonial sites, landmarks related to meeting grounds like scar trees, rocks, where their paths cross the paths of other clans, about shelters to overnight, about climate and microclimates, and much more. The songline was a repository of the ethical laws which govern their lives, instructions about the right behavior, about gender relations and marriage rules. To the songline belonged dances, meant to invoke spirits with whom they wanted to communicate, spirits whom they asked for instructions, passage, protection, blessings. The songlines were continuously depicted in the paintings of the Aboriginals on their own bodies and on the bark of trees, to express their artistic sense and as a means to engrave them in their memory. By walking, reciting, dancing the landscape of the songline, what they called singing the songline, with all its geological formations, its fauna and flora, they kept the land alive, they maintained its living existence. Because for the Australian Aboriginals, everything was alive, not only the animals and the vegetation, but also the rocks, the sand, the rivers, the stars. Because according to them, for something to exist in the physical world, it has to be observed and configured. Songlines were thus navigational tools over large distances, carried all practical knowledge needed for a balanced life and a harmonious social organization, and they hold the ethical laws and metaphysical knowledge which made Australian Aboriginals thrive for 65,000 years. While waiting for the permit, I traveled to Ayers Rock, to Uluru. I circumambulated it during day and gazed at the stars on the sky in the night. Never were the stars so numerous and near as at Uluru. Eventually, the permit found me in Alice Springs. A plane delivering mail took me 300 kilometers inland to Yundumu, where a Warlpiri tribe lives. And it was a shattering experience. I saw what it means to destroy a people, what culture means for the identity of people, and what it means to destroy cultural identity. The metaphysical can contain the physical cannot contain the metaphysical. The sacred and the profane cannot coexist simultaneously. In a diptych of a hare and a duck, you can see either a hare or a duck, not both at the same time. In the carvings in a rock, you can see either some intersecting lines, or if you know how, you can see the signature of the otherworldly beings who have imagined the rock and thus conferred it to its physical shape. How does historical trauma look like for Australian Aboriginals? Australian Aboriginals lost through colonization almost everything which made them be who they were for thousands of years. They did not possess material goods. They owned songlines. They did not live in houses as they were nomads. They slept in natural shelters. They did not write. They transmitted their knowledge through stories, music, dance, and paintings. They walked along fixed paths, which they owned due to mythological and teaching stories, poems, descriptions of rock formations, plants, animals, weather patterns. These paths were called songlines, their most precious possession. They owned knowledge, not material goods. The British invaders, most of them convicts, could not see them as human beings. They were dark-colored, almost naked, had built no houses, did not write, ergo, no humans. And this is how they treated them. They were hunting them as they were hunting kangaroos. Colonization divided the continent according to completely different parameters than the songlines. The Australian Aboriginals lost their territories and their songlines. With this, they lost their staple food, which had kept them lean. For the first time, they proved sugar. They lost their physical health as obesitas and diabetes surged. They lost many of their rituals and places of worship. One generation lost their children. They lost their dignity, freedom, their cultural identity. They are in a, quote, cultural void of Michel Sotero, which leads men to alcoholism and youngsters to petrol sniffing. The Aboriginals, they received from the Australian government land, but the land does not correspond to the songline of the clan, and the land is anyway much smaller. And they were forced to become sedentary while they were nomads. And they were forced to live in houses, or houses were put at their disposal. But to live in a house, it's alien to them. And then this is how it looks. They lost their lifestyle, and to lifestyle belongs also nutrition, and they lost their staple food, and they buy food only from the supermarket, which they are not used to. It's not the food they were eating for thousands of years. And the result is that they have health problems. I'll show you one more video.
I'm dying. Eh? Sad. It's really sad. And I'm the last singer. There's no one, only myself. I'll be taking all those cultural songs, stories, everything with me.
Terry only has a few months to live, and it's time for him to pass on his sacred knowledge. He has chosen his 11-year-old grandson, Lucas, to be his successor.
Yeah.
Terry is taking Lucas back to his tribal homeland to show him the ways of his ancestors, ways that have nearly vanished.
Lucas has one foot in the mortal world, another foot on Aboriginal world. This world here and this other world They're splitting my grandson in half. Which way he wants to go?
This is the place where Terry's tribe believes the world began. It is the starting point of a song line, an ancient pathway first traveled by the ancestor spirits and retraced by countless generations of their people. This song line stretches more than 100 miles, a week-long trek for the both of them. As they begin their journey, Terry calls out to the spirits for protection.
My ancestors here, they're listening to me. I can feel them. I can hear wind speaking to me. I can hear birds speaking to me. It's ancestors talking to me. All the spirits. Wherever we go, they're here.
With this, we say goodbye to the Australian Aboriginals.